In this tutorial, I will walk you through the process of replicating your Azure virtual machines to ensure business continuity and minimize the impact of unexpected outages. Learning objectives of this video are creating Recovery Service Vault. This Recovery Service Vault is a centralized platform in Microsoft Azure which is used for business continuity and disaster recovery. That means for backup and the replication of the virtual machines. Next, I will talk about replicating the Azure virtual machines to the secondary region, how we replicate an Azure VM from one region to other region, what are the best practices, I will talk about that. Then I will initiate the test failover, which is used to validate your replication, that whether the replication is healthy or not. You keep doing this test failover or test drill over the period of time. Frequently you keep doing it to ensure that the replication is healthy. Planned failover, then we will do a planned failover, that how can we fail over our workload from one region to other region. And finally, I will protect this failed over workload and will fail it back to the primary region once again. For this demonstration purpose, I will use a virtual machine here which is in East US location. I will be replicating it to some other region in Northern America. The very first resource that I need to work with the replication of the virtual machines or backup is the Recovery Service Vault. I will create a Recovery Service Vault by clicking on Create Recovery Service Vault. Will provide the Azure account where I want to create it, a resource group. For an instance, this is for disaster recovery purpose, DRRG. The vault name, so this is for training purpose, I name it as Training Vault. East US is the location. I will ignore rest of the parameters. For an instance, the encryption, I will go with Microsoft provided platform or Microsoft managed keys, rather bringing my own. Then networking will be public endpoint tag I have ignored, and I have deployed this recovery service vault. Deployed, I will open this recovery service vault where I have options to do the backup and to enable the site recovery, entire site recovery. It is used for backup and replication purpose, as I mentioned earlier in the intro of this recovery service vault. I want to see the getting started window where I have backup and we have site recovery option as well here. I want to replicate the virtual machine, so it will be for Azure virtual machines or for VMware virtual machines to Azure, or your Hyper-V virtual machines in your on-premises to Azure. So from on-prem to Azure, from VMware infrastructure or Hyper-V, you will need to protect your infrastructure and this will require the configuration as per your infrastructure. For an instance, for VMware, the steps will be different. This is the step-by-step guide that will take you through the process for preparing the infrastructure. Because in my case, this is Azure virtual machine, so I will be enabling the replication on my Azure VM. Infrastructure preparation tasks will not be required here. I will do the separate videos on Hyper-V or VMware virtual machines replication, where you can have a look at how to replicate them from on-premises to the, or from any cloud where you have them running on Hyper-V. Maybe you are using some private cloud or some other data centers, third-party data centers, where from you want to replicate these machines to the Azure. I will enable it for Azure. So enable replication for Azure virtual machine. I will choose the region, which is East US. The subscription is this account where I have the resource group. So this is Training RG where I have the virtual machine. The deployment model is classic or ARM. So this is resource manager model that I'm using. Disaster recovery between availability zones. If you want between the availability zones, then you can choose the availability zones also over here. I have deployed the virtual machine without availability zones in my case. Then I will choose the virtual machines from this source location. So it will list you all those VMs based on the criteria that you have specified in the previous tab. This is my East US server 1 that I want to replicate. I will choose my virtual machine. Then it comes to the replication settings. So I want to target it to the West US, or you can pick it accordingly. So there will be some other locations coming up that you can choose. And then you will choose the target subscription where you want to replicate it. It will create a resource group by the name training RG ASR. A new resource group will be created in that secondary location. If you want, you can create a new one based on your naming convention requirements. So you can change that. The virtual network with which it will map, so that when you do the failover, the virtual machine will start in that network. So it will do the it will create a VNet in the secondary region. This is the failover subnet that it will be using over there. You can do the network mapping, the storage configurations also. You can define these parameters. So storage is configured separately for each virtual machine, and it will be using the managed disk. So underlying storage account will be managed by Microsoft for these disks. Available options that we have, available options are configured separately for each virtual machines, and in case of capacity reservation, you can also apply that if required. Then finally, you will define the replication policy, that 24-hour retention policy you want. This replication is actually synchronous, so it will be replicating all the things immediately. But because it is from East US to West US to a different geolocation, so it may be some delay. The second region might be behind the primary. This retention policy is what? Let me just show you this retention policy. Here you can define your own retention policy, let's say for testing purpose. So basically what happens is the recovery point objective you need to define over here, that retention period in days 0 to 15 days. So you can define that. For an instance, if you look here, number of days up to which the recovery points will be retained. What are those recovery points? Every 5 minutes the recovery points are generated by Microsoft Azure platform, so that you can go back to the last known good configuration. This replication is synchronous, as I mentioned, so it continuously replicates the virtual machines, but every 5 minutes it will be creating the checkpoints, so that you can restore from that previous point in time configuration. That is what recovery point objective is. So you can define that for how many days you want. So for an instance, you put it for 1 day, so every 5 minutes it will be created, and the last 1 day or they will be retained for 1 day. So last 1 day recovery points you will have the access to. So number of days to which recovery points will be retained, specify a valid number between 0 to this 15, and if you specify 0, then there will be no additional recovery points, and you can fail over only from the latest point. I'm putting it, let's say 1 day, at least I want the recovery points for this. Then disable app consistency frequency. If you want, you can go make it app crash consistent snapshot as well, and then click OK. Finally, you will click next, and you will enable the replication. When this replication is enabled, it will take some time and will start replicating the virtual machine to the secondary location that you have selected based on the selected attributes. Well, the replication of the virtual machine is completed. If you'll see that the virtual machine's replication health is healthy, status is that the virtual machine is protected, and it is the active location where the virtual machine is running. You will notice a warning under the failover health, and this warning is because the test failover has not been performed. So if I click on this protected virtual machine, you will see it will be telling you that never performed successfully this test failover. So there are options for failing over or doing a test failover to validate this replication, that whether it is working fine or not, rather than waiting for the last minute for the disaster and then planning to fail over. You do the test drills to test your or validate your failover. You will notice that this virtual machine is replicating from East US to the West US location, and the resources that it is using is virtual machine is using a cache storage account, and this site recovery is the centralized management platform for this replication. There is one managed disk that is getting replicated to the second location. There we see the replication configuration, and Microsoft has introduced this business continuity center as well, that you can use for protecting your resources at scale and configuring them. So you will see the protected resources protection status. If I take you to the protected items, so there is one virtual machine which is protected, East US server, one machine, Azure Site Recovery, and the protection status in the primary region not protected, secondary region it is protected. So this is the configuration of the replication of my virtual machine. I'll go back to the previous window for the recovery service vault, and there I will show you how to initiate the test failover. I will open this virtual machine, and there I have option to do the test failover. When you do the test failover, remember that you do it into a dedicated network. You will see this as your virtual network that will ask you to use. You can create a dedicated network for testing purpose only and then choose that network. The reason behind that is that when you do a test failover, so virtual machine is active in both location, in primary and secondary locations. So that is why the test failovers are done in a tested environment or in an isolated environment, so that it avoids any duplicacy of the virtual machines. Otherwise there will be two instances powered on of your VM. So we want the duplicate instance to be powered on, but in a test network. So that is where we choose the network. I already have a network in that second location, the West US location, where I have one virtual machine deployed earlier. So I will be using that same network, and I will initiate the test failover. It will trigger it, will take some time to initiate the test failover, and I will pause the video. We'll get back once this test failover is completed. Test failover for the virtual machine has been completed. You will notice that under the replicated items where my virtual machine is, the replication state is healthy and that exclamation mark has gone, and the status is that you need to do the cleanup after the testing the failover. If I show you the virtual machine instances, you will notice that there are two virtual machine instances now. One is in the East US and the second one is powered on from the West US. So this is the replicated instance and this is running in West US. Because both of the instances are up and running, so it may impact your production. That is why I mentioned that you need to do the test failover into a test network. The network you need to choose very carefully. Otherwise this machine may also cause the problems in your network, in your production environment. So this network need to be a dedicated isolated test network just for this test drill. And once we have done this testing or validation of this failover, that yes, this is working absolutely fine, now the next thing we can do is we can clean up these resources after completing this drill. I will go to the replicated items, and there is an option that you see to clean up the test failover pending. And when I will do this, it will delete that instance. So what it is going to do, the job is here: prerequisite check, then create test virtual machine, prepare the virtual machine, start the virtual machine. Those things have been already completed. Now I'm going to clean up this environment. Somehow it has opened a different thing, so let me complete the cleanup. So here you will see that there is an option cleanup test failover. I can do it from here. Testing is completed. Put a note: test is complete, delete test failover virtual machines. That's fine. You can in fact connect to that virtual machine, and you can see that whatever the changes you did in the primary region, they are getting replicated to the secondary location or not. And once you are done with this testing, you will clean up the resources. It will take few seconds to complete that, or depending on the size of the virtual machine that you had, it will clean up the resources. Once it is done, then we are good to do the failover also, the planned failover. After that we can initiate. I will pause this video till the time this cleanup process of the test failover resources is completed, and will then show you performing the planned failover. This test failover task has been completed. If I look for the notification area, you see successful completed the operation, and I can now refresh this window to see that this cleanup test failover is gone. It is grayed out because test failover was completed. So frequently you can do this test failover drill to validate your failover, whether it is working fine or not. And in case of any planned failovers you are required to perform, then there is a button called failover. And in the failover, what happens is that your virtual machine will start from the secondary location and it will be turned off from the primary location. Basically only one instance will run, because in the disaster recovery it's active passive. So pre-validation is successful. You want to recover it from the latest point, the RTO. So here it is, the latest processed point, recovery point, where from I want to start it. And then I can shut down the machine before beginning the failover, or I can it will be turned off automatically later on. So from the beginning, if you want to do, you can do it accordingly. Okay, so I will initiate the failover as per the recommended configuration, and that means that virtual machine will keep running and will keep accepting the connections from here. The request for failover has been started. You will notice that the virtual machine must be running in the primary location at this point, but shortly this will turn off from here. So all the memory changes that have been done, they will be replicating synchronously to the second location, and then the replication point I have selected, from which replication point I want to start that second VM. Now in few seconds you will see that the virtual machine will be powered on from the west US, and this will be turned off from the east US location, since I have initiated the failover. It will take few seconds again, so I'll pause this video and will resume once it is completed. Well, this planned failover task has been completed. If I go to the notification area, so the starting task to perform the unplanned failover of the virtual machine is completed, successful completion of the operation. And now if I refresh this window of the virtual machines, you will notice that this was the East US server 1, which was the uh, primary instance, the source location, and the virtual machine is basically the geo naming convention was this way. So this machine location is West US, this one. Now if I take you to the recovery service vault, and because I did not check that box that okay, I will stop the virtual machine, so I need to look into the commit replicated items, and I need to commit the failover basically. So failover is completed, the task is completed for this VM. But here you will see that you are committing this, that okay, I commit this failover. Once you do this, it will fetch this data. Are you sure you want to commit the virtual machine? Once you commit, you cannot change the recovery point of the virtual machine. So whatever the recovery point you selected, you will be starting from there. So it is committing the failover, and once this failover commitment is completed, or you commit this change, then you will notice that the virtual machine that is in the primary region, the source region, that will be turned off. So this is East US, this is the source location of the VM, and this is going on, will take few seconds. Failover is committed, and this is the server. And if I go to the server this time, the failover is committed, and there is no issue at all. The agent version, health, everything I can see over here. Now you will notice that failover or test failover options have been grayed out. Reason being, the server is now running from the West US location, and if you want to fail it back, like I mentioned earlier in the introduction, that I will show you the failback. So failback is actually a terminology that we use. Failback, we are saying that okay, I want to run it back from the source location, East US location. But this will take place through the failover process. I need to reprotect my virtual machine. Reprotection of the virtual machine means that This time the virtual machine will replicate from West US to East US. You will configure this in the reverse direction. So you can click on this Reprotect button to make this job easy. That option has been given to you, West US to East US, because it has all that configuration in place that you defined. So this helps you in reprotecting your VM, and then the replication will be initiated. Then again you need to wait for some time depending on the size of the virtual machine. It will start replicating. So this time the source is West US, and destination or target region, the replicated region, is the East US. Here you see the target virtual network is this US East VNet that I was having, and the target resource group is training RG, and this is the cache storage account that it is using. It will validate this, and once it is done, then your virtual machine will be reprotected. Then what you can do is you can fail it over to the East US location.